Alright, hi everyone and welcome back to another Hoya cross-edge tips video. Today I'm going to be showing you a trick that I've already mentioned in a previous video, although I didn't go too in-depth on it, so that's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to show you some more of the expansions and uses for quite common cases at both an intermediate and a more advanced level. Now, like I said, I talked about this a bit before in a previous video, but I'm going to go over everything again here just for clarity. And so the trick I'm showing you today is the trick for when you have one wing unsolved and it's oriented and in a back slot. And the solution for this case is R wide 2, U, R, U prime, R wide 2. So a couple of quick things to note before we carry on. This tip does work for midges, but it's most useful for wings, so that's what I'm mainly going to be showing here. And also it works for oriented pieces as long as they are in any of the side slots, any of the F2L slots, or in UL or UR. It also works for blocks, which I will show mainly on 6x6 and 7x7 later, because that's where those cases come up the most often. Also, this case doesn't actually affect your last two centers in any way. So especially if you're on your last cross edge, then it's really, really nice. You can gain some extra look ahead info from this. So for example, I see this piece here, and I can also see my last two centers. I have a square here, and this pair and this bar here. So I know I'm going to get a really nice case, and I can go into it with no pauses whatsoever. And as usual, this case works exactly the same on the left. All of the cases that I'll show you have mirrors that work exactly the same. You just do lefty moves instead of righty. I'm not going to go through all of those because they should be fairly intuitive. Once you know one, you'll be able to do the other. So I'm going to start with cases where the wing is oriented and in slots first, because that's where it's most useful. So for this case, as I've shown before, when the wing is in BR, the solution is R wide 2, U, R, U prime, R wide 2 prime. And what we're actually doing in this solution is we're bringing this unsolved slot where the edge piece needs to go to the U layer with an R wide 2, like that. And then we're just going to set this piece up to where it needs to go and then undo. And in this case, that can be done in just 3 moves like that. Then for this case, we have the wing in the front right slot and it's oriented. This time we can do R wide 2, U, R prime, U prime, R wide 2. And it's also important to note that for these two cases where the wing is on the right and it needs to go in the right hand slot, when we do the R wide 2 move, then the cross edge that was here is now moved to the U layer. And whenever we insert the last piece like that, the cross edge doesn't get affected. So because we have nothing to preserve here, we can just insert it in 3 moves like that. And that's important because for cases like this, where the last piece is on the left and we need to solve it to the right, then we can't just use 3 moves, and I'll show you why. Because when we do this R wide 2 to put the slot up here, then we have a solved cross edge here still that doesn't get affected. So we can't just do 3 moves, we have to do a 4th to make sure we preserve the edge that's here. So what this case looks like then, when the wing is in the back left, is we could do R wide 2, U prime, L, U, L prime, R wide 2. And then for the front left slot, it's a very similar idea. We can do R wide 2, U prime, L prime, U, L, R wide 2. Now this also works, as I said, for when the wing is in the U layer and it's oriented, except you have to do it from either UL or UR if it's over here. And so for this case, when it's in UL, you can do R wide 2 and then L prime, U prime, L, U, R wide 2. And then if it's in UR like this, then again we can only need to use a 3 move setup, and we can do R wide 2, U, R2, U prime, R wide 2, like that. Now I mentioned this before as well, but for cases where you have 2 pieces unsolved and the 2 unsolved pieces are together in a block like this, then this trick also works exactly the same, except this time we're going to move both of these 2 unsolved slots to the U layer with 3 R wide 2. And then we can finish with U, R, U prime like before, and then 3 R wide 2 again. And it works for front slots as well, obviously. We've got 3 R wide 2, U, R prime, U prime, 3 R wide 2. And same for the left. So here we've got back left, so we're going to do 3 R wide 2, U prime, L, U, L prime, 3 R wide 2. And it also works for the U layer as well. So if I had this case in UL, I could do 3 R wide 2, L prime, U prime, L, U, 3 R wide 2. I'm not going to go through every single block case, because they're exactly the same as the just one wing unsolved cases. So those should be pretty obvious. So now I'm going to show you that they work also on 6x6 and 7x7. So starting with 6x6, if we look at green here, we've got one wing unsolved and it's in the back here. So we can do exactly the same thing. R wide 2, U, R, U prime, R wide 2. Then if we look here at orange, we've got 2 pieces solved and 2 unsolved in this block here. And again, we can do a similar idea. We can do this time 3R wide 2 to move both these slots here, and then U, R prime, U prime, 3R wide 2. And it's just the same for the left slots and the U layer as well. So here again, we've got these 2 pieces unsolved. So we're going to do 3R wide 2, this time U, R2, U prime, 3R wide 2. And most importantly for big cubes is that it also works for inner wings just by themselves like this. Now this looks like quite a horrible case. I'm sure you've come across it before. We've got our last remaining inner wing in the back and it's oriented. So if we bring it to the U layer like that, then we get still a very bad case. And we don't want to take it out with B moves because that's pretty bad. So what we can do instead is just slice up this single slot. So we would do a 3R2 like that, so that just this piece is back here. And then we could do U, R prime, U prime, R, and then 3R2. Now it's important to note there that as you saw, I did 4 moves to set up, even though it's technically a right hand inner wing. And the reason for that is because when you just do one slice move like this, then this cross edge does actually not get disturbed, unlike before when it's an outer wing. So what we need to do here is, again, as we would just for the left, we need to do 4 moves to make sure we keep this preserved until that looks like this in that scenario, and then we can just slice back. And of course on 7x7 it's exactly the same. We have this inner wing that we need to solve, and this time it's in the back left. So we can again just do a 3R2 slice like that, and then U prime, L, U, L prime, and then 3R2 slice again. Now probably my favorite application for this trick is most useful on 6x6 and 7x7, and it's when we have multiple pieces unsolved here from our last cross edge, and they're in the back and they're both oriented, but they're in different slots. And this is a really terrible case. I'm sure if you've ever come across it before, you really didn't know how to deal with it. But that's what I'm going to show you now, because the brilliant thing about this trick is you can solve both of these pieces sort of together. And what I mean by that is if we do what we did before and bring up both of these 2 empty slots to the U layer like this, we can then just pick one piece at a time. So in this case, it would be nice to solve the inner wing first. So let's do that. We can do this piece. We can set it up as we would normally to where it needs to go with U, R, U prime. And then what we can do, instead of slicing both layers back, we can just slice this one layer back like that. And now, because we know already this piece is here, we can go straight into solving this piece. Just like that, and then slice that back. And this can be so useful to know, because if we take a case like this, we've only got one piece solved of our last cross edge, and our other pieces are here. This is our other outer wing, and then the inner wings are here and here. And as you can see, all of them are oriented, and all of them, just to solve one at a time, would be pretty bad. So if there's any way we can solve these together, then I think we should really do that. And there is. So we can, again, move all 3 of these slots to the U layer, like that. Then we can pick one piece to solve first. I normally think in a case like this, I want to go left to right just to make sure I've definitely got everything. So for this case, for example, the first piece I'm going to do is this piece in the back. So with that, I can do the 4 move setup like before, then just slice this piece down. Then I can do this piece of the other inner wing. Again, 4 moves to set up and slice it back down. And our last piece I know was on the top, so it's now on the bottom, so I can just do U, R2, U prime, and then finish to solve it like that. Another way you could use this, for example, would be something like this. Again, we've got a couple of pieces solved, 3 unsolved, and this time 2 of them are here in the same slot, but they're not a block, they're separated by a piece, and then the other one is back here. So what we can do this time, again, we can bring all of these unsolved layers up, and then let's say we wanted to do this piece first. We can do the normal 3 moves to solve it. Then we can slice that back down. And now we just have 2 left, and they're not a block, but that doesn't matter because we can just set both of them up together like that, and then they're both where they need to be. And then we can slice them all back down. So that's one approach you could take when you've got 2 pieces unsolved, Both of them are oriented and in back slots. And so for this case here, we've got the midge on the left and the wing on the right. And what we would do here is 3R2. Then we could solve the midge with U prime, L, U, L prime. Then we can do an M2 slice like that. And then we can solve this piece with U, R, U prime and R wide 2 to finish. And the thing to note here is that for any case like this, any case that I've showed you, any of the basic cases, if you've got multiple of them like this, then you can apply this technique to all of these cases together. That is to say, you can effectively just cancel in between solving these cases with the same technique. So in this case, we have our midge this time in the front left, and our other wing is in the U layer. So we could solve this one first, but we don't want to just do outer layer turns because we can cancel into inserting the midge. So we can do a 3R wide 2 like this, and then we can do U, R2, U prime, R wide 2, and then go straight into this with U prime, U, L, and then a small M2 slice. And on top of that, you can do them in any order you want really, which is another really good thing to note about this case. So here we might see we've got a piece here, a piece here, and a piece here. And again, pretty nasty case, but let's just try and tackle everything all together. So we do a 4R wide 2 like that. Let's do this one first because it's already in the U layer, so that's nice and easy. We can set it up in 4 moves there. Then we'll do this slice, and then we know our other inner wing is back here, so let's do that next. Again, 4 move setup, slice down, and then our last outer wing here with just 3 moves and slice down again. So in short, for any number of pieces go in the same cross edge that are all oriented and in any of your F2L slots or in UR or in UL, you can apply this trick and solve them together. So one more example here. I already know that I've got 2 oriented pieces in the back, and I can see this one and I can see this one. So I'm just going to do a 5R wide this time to slice up all 4 of the unsolved slots to the back. And let's do them one at a time. So the first thing I can see is this one. So we'll do that one first. Slice down. I know there's one back here, so I'm going to bring it back. And then it's this one, so we can slice it down like that. We have another one here, which I can solve in 3 moves. And then our last one is also down here, and we can solve it like that. So as you can see, there is lots and lots of freedom here. It's a very simple technique, but it can be applied to the majority of cases where a wing is oriented. And it's especially helpful for cases that are otherwise very awkward or would use a lot of moves, and especially for cases where pieces are stuck in back slots. Now, if you're not a massive fan of R2 or R wide 2 finger tricks, then there are other options as well. There's a different variation of this case, where instead of moving the empty slot to UB, which is here, you can instead move it to FU, which is here. So again, we've got our wing oriented in BR, and so what we're going to do is just an R wide move like that. Now we can still set up this piece to here in 3 moves, and it's actually pretty much the same 3 moves as we would use to set up the piece if it was like this. We're just doing it from a different angle. So for example, where here we would go U, R, U prime, when we're here we will go F, R, F prime. And that does exactly the same thing if you imagine it from this angle. What we're really doing is just U, R, U prime, but nothing in any of these 3 layers is actually affected. So this case then can also be solved with R wide, F, R, F prime, R wide prime. And that's quite nice to do as well. And again, this works for the left slots as well. So here in this case, we can do R wide. And then actually here, what we can do is we can do a left sledge. So that's L, F prime, L prime, F, and then finish with R wide prime. For the other front slot case, which is this one, we can do R wide, F, R prime, F prime, R wide prime. And for this back slot case, where it's in the back left and it needs to go to here, this is a little bit more awkward, but you can think about it in a couple of different ways, and it's still a 5 mover. So if we move this up with R wide, we can then do B prime, U2, B, R wide prime. Now B moves aren't that great, and if you can avoid doing them, then you should, but we can do exactly the same alg, but imagine it in a different way. And that way is if we imagine hiding these 2 pieces. So if we start with a 3L wide, we then end up with our thumb on the bottom. And then we can put this piece down here with U prime, F2, U. And then we can finish with 3R wide prime. And that's exactly the same thing, it's just a different way of thinking about it. So if that helps you imagine it better, then that's a good way to do it as well. And as you probably guessed, this works with blocks as well. So this time we will do a 3R wide, and then put these two pieces up to here with F, R, F prime, and then finish with 3R wide prime. And say this case where they're in back left, we can do 3R wide, B prime, U2, B, 3R wide prime. Or if you prefer to think about it this way, the same case can be done with L wide, U prime, F2, U, L wide prime. And of course you can do this on 6x6 and 7x7 as well. The one thing I would say with this though, even if you prefer the version that I just showed you, where you do R wide, F, R, F prime, R wide prime, if you prefer that for cases like this where the wing is in the back slot and it's on the right, then by all means use that for outer wings. But for cases if you want to try and solve two pieces together and you find, say, doing this and then B moves or whatever a bit awkward, which is fair enough, then I would advise not trying to do both different types of solutions for solving two pieces together. And what I mean by that is you don't really want to be trying to set up this case for this piece to the back and this case for this piece to the front at the same time. Because doing something like this, you know, where you want to set up this to here and this piece to here, that could get a bit messy. So I would advise not trying to do that. So like I said, even if you would prefer to insert this wing with something like R wide, F, R, F prime, R wide prime, if you wanted to solve both of these two pieces at the same time, then I would recommend just moving both of these two slots to the back with a 3R wide 2 like that, and just taking each case separately. Like this one you can do in 4 moves like that, and then this one in 3 moves like that, just to save yourself a bit of bother there. So there you go, that's about all I've got to say for that trick. Like I said, there are tons and tons of ways you can use this, and it's really, really nice, especially because the cases where you've got an oriented piece stuck in a back slot are generally really, really bad, especially if you're a beginner. So knowing this trick and knowing the intermediate level and advanced level ways you can implement it into your solves is really, really helpful, because it can save a hell of a lot of time. So this is a big one to watch out for in your solves. I hope this helped a lot, and as always, thanks for watching.